There's been a lot of questions about how the vaccine stacks up to some of the different variants and also what you can and cannot do before and after the vaccine. So we took those questions right to the experts. Bill B. writing in with several questions, one of them being, are there indications that the Pfizer vaccine may not be effective to the South African variant? Well, Dr. Hussein of Trinity Health said new research on this is coming in daily, but the most recent research says the vaccine may not be as effective against that variant.
Now, we do have new data coming in almost on a daily basis of how these variants are popping up. Some variants, such as the B1351 or the South African variant, we know has the possibility of evading the vaccine-mediated immunity, which is a concern because it means basically the vaccines may not be as effective against that particular variant. Now, what will be effective is wearing a mask.
Another question from Bill is if it's okay to use Tylenol or Advil to mitigate any discomfort, fever, chills, etc. associated with either the first or second shot. He went on to say, I'm hearing that Tylenol may be okay, but not Advil. Well, this is a claim that our Verify team recently looked into. According to vaccine expert Dr. Peter Hotez, it's best to avoid those painkillers before getting the vaccine, especially if they're anti-inflammatories like Advil. According to Hotez, anti-inflammatories could potentially limit the effectiveness of the vaccine. The concern is that taking these painkillers ahead of time may dampen your immune system's response to the vaccine. However, according to the CDC, over-the-counter pain medicine like ibuprofen is okay to take after you get the vaccine. We want to hear from you. If you have a COVID-19 related vaccine question, send it to us. Share 61 at fox61.com. And for the very latest vaccine news, head to our website, fox61.com. I'm Ashley Afonso with the Fox 61 Vaccine Team.